Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to share a tutorial and some insight into my arrangement of the Doxology. Believe it or not, this arrangement was inspired in part by electronic music, specifically electronic dance music, just some of the elements like the driving right hand and the driving left hand with quarter notes instead of triplets, the chord structure. The drop is what they call it in electronic music, where an arrangement builds up and then right before a climax the bass just drops out of it before it then comes in strong. Those are all elements that I borrowed for this arrangement, and the reason for that is electronic music is so inspiring and joy-filled and celebratory, and I felt that was perfect match with what is, in my opinion, the quintessential praise song. And you certainly want, when people think about their blessings and want to thank someone for it, praise God from whom all blessings flow, you want people to be filled with joy and celebration. And so I hope this arrangement does that. I hope it does it for you as a pianist and for those who listen to you play it. And because of that, the thing I want to draw your attention to that's probably the biggest challenge with this piece is not maybe what you would expect it to be. The hardest part, quote unquote, is probably going to be at measure 82, this climax section, and the fills in particular. You've got a whole new rhythm, you're playing big chords and these big runs like that, and you're jumping all over the place and it's fast and all of that. But actually, and I'm going to get to that in a second, in my opinion, the most important part of this arrangement, and probably the most difficult to really get well, is that triplet figure in your right hand that's present throughout almost the entire arrangement. Because it's deceptively difficult, because you want that triplet figure to be perfectly steady, both in rhythm and in volume. So you don't want it to sound like this, or if you have any of those kind of lolloping features to your playing of it, it's going to sound like you're galloping on a horse. And you also don't want any notes to stick out obtrusively, like then it's just going to get obnoxious. You want them to be steady, kind of like the metaphor that comes to mind is in a fishing boat. You have the I'm not a fisherman, so I apologize to any of you who are, but the little tiny motor that just kind of keeps you scooting along very slowly and just gives a little hum. It's a steady rhythmic hum. That's kind of what you want that figure to be as you play it. You also want to have enough control that when you're playing these left hand parts in the intro, and then when the melody comes in at measure 42 in your right hand while you're also playing that figure, you don't want that figure to overpower what's happening that's of interest, the melody and the left hand parts. So you want to have enough control there. I can offer some tips if you're struggling with that to help. The first tip is what I give as the first tip for almost every challenge in playing the piano, and that is to start by going slowly. Using a metronome at a very slow tempo and just increasing it incrementally. And then using no pedal as you're working it up to speed. Don't use your pedal, because the pedal's going to cover up things, and playing it dry, as I say, will expose any parts that are uneven. Another thing you can experiment with is the fingering. You don't have to play it with 5-3-1. You could play it 4-2-1, which will let you use some fingers that are a little bit more strong and stable. Also, making sure that you have wrist flexibility, relaxation, and movement as you're playing that really helps me anyway. you have a figure there where it's descending, and if you create a kind of circular motion with your wrist, that can also help. At least doing that as you're practicing it will help keep your hand and your wrist relaxed, because nothing is going to make that unsteady more than a stiff hand. So yeah, those are some tips. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. I think that's it. Okay, I just remembered there's something else. I make all this emphasis on keeping it steady. However, it's also, you don't want it to sound like a robot. So you do want phrasing to exist. And I'll just give you an example here. When the melody first comes in at measure 19, there are these spaces in the melody, and I purposefully wrote in a kind of counter melody in that right hand figure to add interest in those spaces. So at measure 21, and those are opportunities for you to really capitalize on making a figure that can easily become robotic much more human, by phrasing it, by ebbing and flowing and letting it breathe. So you probably heard me do this on the recording. I did something like, well, that's a little exaggerated, but you get the idea. There's some interest there. Still keeping it steady and even, but giving it some phrasing. Okay, hopefully that's helpful to you. All right, moving on to the big section, measure 82. I just want to offer up, if these fills at measure 83, 85, and 87 are too much, don't let that be a reason for you not playing this arrangement. You can just cut those measures out. I mean, not the whole measure, but you can cut those parts in your right hand out of those measures. In reality, my first draft of this arrangement didn't even have those fills. So originally, this arrangement went, if I started at measure 82, just space, 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 and it works perfectly fine without those fills. So if you're running short on time to practice in preparation for performing it, you can cut those out easily and make the arrangement much more simple. And again, if I were to give some tips on if you do want to tackle it and you're having trouble with it, the best thing that helps me, particularly at measure 87 where you have so many leaps, like that, two things that my piano professor taught me are to keep your hand close to the keys. Don't do this. You're wasting time and energy doing that. There's no reason to flip your hand up in the air. Keep your hand close. The only movement you need to hit those notes and let them ring is this. So keep your hand close, and then let your wrist kind of drag your hand along. Think of it as like your wrist is attached to a bungee cord that's pulling it up as you play those. Or in measure 85, it's a descending line, so it's the opposite. Your wrist is being pulled down. And having your wrist kind of anticipate where your fingers are going to land helps your fingers get there faster and more securely. I can't exactly demonstrate that for you because of the angle I'm sitting at to make room for the camera, but I think you get the idea. This arrangement is in D flat, and those figures can be difficult in D flat because you have to move so quickly and make such leaps, and your margin of error is so small because they all have to land on these black notes. That's, I think, the one thing about it being in D flat that makes it harder. I am going to make this arrangement available for you in D major as well, just two sharps. But I actually believe that this song is easier to play in D flat because D flat, with the way the black notes sit against the white notes, these three fingers, which are your longer fingers, naturally sit on the black notes, and your pinky and your thumb usually are hitting white notes, and it just fits in the hand better. Obviously, though, five flats is overwhelming to try to learn a piece, to try to read a piece with five flats when you're not used to doing that. So D major might be easier to learn the piece. I think D flat major is probably easier to perform the piece, but I think you're going to make the decision that's best for you. And with that being said, I'll just leave with a final comment, and this is true of this arrangement, and it's true of any of my arrangements or any of my compositions. I cut my teeth on, I took classical lessons when in college. I had a classically based education, and yet I really cut my teeth on contemporary styles where improvisation is a core tenet. And I love it when pianists take my arrangements and my compositions and make them their own. So, for example, cutting out those measures with the fills here at measure 83, 85, and 87 is totally fine. I don't care if you do that. If you want to maybe alter some other things, cut some measures out, add some measures in, turn it around, make it your own in whatever way. If it works and if you love it and it's something that you want to do and you feel like it's taking my arrangement and it's putting your own little seasoning and spice on it, I love that. And I encourage you to do that. Of course, you can play it as written, and that's also wonderful. But I want you to feel the freedom to make it your own if you want to. So, thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful, and I will see you in the next tutorial.